So what does it mean to invest in your employees? At the very minimum, it means providing them the tools and the support that they feel that they need to do their job. And if you really want to get the best employees, recruit the best employees, and retain the best employees so that you can have the best customer satisfaction as a follow on effect, then that means you have to be using premium technologies. If you try and get the best employees and say, do your best job with the lowest quality equipment I could supply to you, they are going to laugh their way out of
Not
there.
only with our customers, but with Apple, learning like how can we bring the best of restaurant technology backed by our services to customers. And that's what we do day in and day out.
Welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Each episode takes a deep dive into the franchise space and explores how the biggest and best brands handle national branding, franchise development, employee recruitment, and localized marketing on a daily basis. This podcast is brought to you by Netcertive, a localized digital marketing partner for franchise networks. Netcertive's Madeline Park talked shop with franchise executives to discuss what's working, what's not, and answers the question, what else can you be doing to excel at the art of franchise marketing?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Today we got something a little bit different from you. I know that I'm usually like anti-supplier only because I don't want people selling things that don't make sense, but I'm making an exception and no, it is not paid. Today we're talking to Dipesh and Tony over at Stratix. And what Stratix does is a lot of mobility tech solutions, specifically in the QSR space. So guys, thanks for joining me today. Dipesh, why don't you, so I don't butcher your absolute title, why don't you tell us kind of what you do over at Stratix?
Thanks for that, Madeline. Well, my title is the Director of Mobile Solution Architecture at Stratix, which means I work directly with our customers to understand their requirements for mobility technology and how to make sure that's supported throughout its life cycle. How they procure it, how they deploy it, what happens when it breaks, and when it's impacting their business.
I love that. And yeah, I think you definitely hit a chord there when you said what happens when it breaks, because that's usually what our franchisors are dealing with. And Tony, talk to us, what is mobile technology solutions? What does that even mean as it pertains to franchising?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Madeline. So, mobile technology, Stratix has been around for 40 years, and I frankly came on board, did a lot of work with Apple, and mobile technology in restaurants is something that we do a lot of work in. So essentially, mobile technology is anything on the Apple side, an iPhone, iPad, or it even expands beyond that. So this is the technology that once was fixed and no longer is. Now everything's mobile.
Yeah, we
I
like to
love
talk
that. So
about,
yeah.
any technology that helps the associate do their job where they need to do it. So whether that is getting out to the customer, being in the back room, or on the floor, yeah, that's mobile technology to us.
Yeah, and for those that aren't in the QSR space, we're talking point of sale system. We're talking training. We're talking you're in that Chick-fil-A line and you're going, how the hell did this franchise figure out everything's so seamless and they're always fully staffed? Well, you see them taking their orders on their little iPads or whatever they have. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. And I think that, later on in this podcast, we're going to get in a little bit more about what that means for your AUV. What does that mean for retention? So, Dipesh, tell me now, what are big brands doing? I know you guys partner with like Inspire brands and things and I want to say things, brands to that extent and level. So, what are they doing with you? What are they doing with Apple that is making them so successful?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you think about it, there's always, in restaurants, there's always two or three different ways to talk about where technology is needed. Most brands are going to talk about the technology at the interface with the customer, but they're also going to talk about technology at the interface with the employee or in the operations of their kitchen. So back of house is very popular right now, making sure that they're able to do inventory and have things up to date, maintaining those freshness labels that are becoming so important, and making sure they've got accurate inventories and planning for the stuff that they need to order, etc. Also, doing maintenance on their equipment has become very popular in the back of house, and they use their technology, their iPads, their iPhones, to go around and take pictures of problems that they may need or to address them right there and then. So that's definitely almost baseline, almost table stakes for most technology in restaurants right now. When you start getting into the stuff that's making a difference in their revenue, a lot of times it's about where they meet the customer. That's getting out into the drive-throughs, that's getting out into doing line busting, depending on the nature of their business and where they're seeing that need to meet the customer where they are. That's definitely making a difference in the revenue because obviously the better the customer experience, the more likely you are to have returns. But then also the better the customer experience depends upon the employees. So we're seeing a lot in helping the employees better themselves, whether it's doing like the universities that a lot of these brands offer and making sure the training is easily accessible or doing the HR forms in a smooth way that is comfortable for today's workers that are out there getting into this for the first time. They're not wanting to fill out forms on paper. They're ready to do it online and then just make sure when they get to the manager, it's all done. So that's where we're definitely seeing, lots of companies, table stakes is the back of house, then where you make your revenue, and then making sure your employees are happy.
And this is important. I just did a roundtable with Michelle over at Franchise Business Review and a bunch of big and small franchisors, and we talked about front of the house versus back of the house, and one is always going to blame the other. When there's something that goes wrong, and the less that can happen, the better your culture is going to be, first and foremost. So I think that that's super important. And you bring up the HR and the recruiting part. I own a fairly large home cleaning franchise, and while we're not necessarily a point of sales, there definitely is a huge drop off between getting people in, actually filling out the application, showing up, being able to do their training. We found that the less steps possible, the more virtual it is, the better our hiring rate and retention is. So, for those of you who might say, oh, I'm not in QSR, I'm not listening to this episode, wrong, continue listening. And Tony, Apple partners with you guys, and I think that that's a very big nod to, the importance of what you guys are doing in franchising. And talk to me about how that happens, because I think people see Apple and they don't necessarily assume franchising or maybe a mobile technology. They only see the platforms or the fancy new iMac or the Apple Watches. So talk to me about why it's important that you guys have a partnership with someone like Apple and what that actually does to support you guys and the brands moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So Apple has high standards. I worked for Apple for over 10 years on the retail side, and that's why I came over to Stratix. And frankly, with that high bar and those expectations that customers have as well of Apple products, we work really hard internally to make sure that we're staying on the curve, ahead of the curve as much as we can with Apple and their products. So, that's certifications for our technical teams. That's understanding with our sales teams, like what's happening out there in the restaurant space, like what are others doing? What is Apple recommending? Why? Things of that nature. And we do sell Apple products. We're an Apple authorized enterprise reseller, which means we can sell products at scale. And we also are an authorized Apple authorized service provider, which means we can do repairs on products. So essentially, we work in many different industries, but in the restaurant space, that is one that we're extremely focused in and spend time day in and day out, not only with our customers, but with Apple, learning like how can we bring the best of restaurant technology backed by our services to customers. And that's what we do day in and day out.
And it took me a couple sessions of calls with you guys to realize that you're not actually the software provider. Instead,
Right.
you are the people that implement whatever their POS system or software may be, whether it's proprietary, whether it's, buy versus build, whatever it is. And then, helping supply the equipment or, if they use their own. And then you're the ones that are really making sure it runs. So Depesh, talk to me about why people need that and what that means. Because I think a lot of franchisors may see like, I'll just buy my own. And then whatever software I use, I have a help desk. Like, why would I pay to have someone like Stratix come in? And it just seems like I'm paying an extra bill and I don't know for what. You and I know why it's important, but please give it to me in layman's terms about, the importance of having someone like Stratix that can help, that flow of customer to employee to franchisor
Yeah.
relatively seamlessly.
And when people think of Apple, in particular Apple, but in any technology as well, they first think of the consumer, and then Apple eventually got into the enterprise, and they've sort of figured out, how do I support the consumer when they've got a problem with their device, and they've figured out, how do I support the enterprise. But franchisees are kind of different from both of those. They have big enterprise kind of problems, kind of scale, kind of issues with HR, etc. But they've got kind of the individual person or individual family even kind of budget and way of operating. So enterprise problems, family approach to solving them. And that's where Apple has really come to us, as we were just talking about, because we've helped them sort of bridge that gap between enterprise and franchisee, bringing those enterprise class support methodologies to the franchisee. Now the question is, as you just asked, well, why does a franchisee need enterprise class support methodologies? Why can't they just do it like a family would? Go to the Apple store and get it done at the Genius Bar or something like that. And the reality is that a family does not have to worry about their revenue streams when they're depending on these mobile technologies. They could go after work and they could just make sure that they get the Genius Bar to swap it out, or they buy a new one, or whatever it is. But here we're talking about people who depend on these technologies for their revenue, and they may not be the people who own the store and are willing to go to that Genius Bar on their own. If you trust your employees to go to the store with your technology, I'm sorry. But when it comes to these savvy franchisees, especially the ones that are starting to get into the multiple store locations, they're going to know that I need to be able to get a replacement device to my store ready for business that my employees could use, and then let them take care of the broken device afterwards, so that they could keep making money. I don't have to keep 5 extra devices on site just in case one breaks. I can make sure that they're going to get a device ready for business. And I say ready for business because that's a key point that I think a lot of people don't understand, of how much time does it really take to set up your device and get all your apps on there, and then get your apps configured, ready to take the next order, or ready to do the next inventory, or the checklist, or whatever it may be, ready to help the next customer. And that's something that Stratix not only will get your broken device out of the field, get a working device in their hands, but get a working device in their hands as simply as possible so they do their job.
And I like this because there's so many analogies I can use, and the two being like franchisees, myself being one of them, we're the worst. Like, we're the best and the worst. Like, we are, if something breaks in our business, it's like when we give our technology to our kids or whatever, we give them a new toy and they don't care if they break it because they're not paying for it. So oftentimes it's used, it's broken, it's misused, it's stolen, it's this or that. And as a business owner, you're sitting there thinking, well, what the hell, guys? But at the end of the day, like, they're not the ones paying for it. They'll get mud on the white couch. They're not paying. It's just a new one's just going to show up.
The better one I like talking about the kids. Like, I go into my kids' rooms, and until I open their drawer, I didn't know that shirt was torn or had a big stain on it, or that the new Lego set I gave them is spread everywhere and never been put together.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing, I think to your point, people forget about, it's one thing to have it, it's another thing to have it set up. So how many times has your, maybe your elderly parent said, I need a new iPhone, and then they just bring you one new in the box, and you're like, oh, shit, there goes my afternoon, because now I have to move everything over. And when you're running a business, especially a restaurant, you don't have time for that. You simply don't. And especially as the owner. And then if you say, okay, well, I'm going to put that on the managers. Well, now that they're taking their time away from customer engagement, their management of employees, to now do things that could easily be delegated somewhere else.
That's right.
And on that, Depesh, what are these, what are some exact, pain points that you're seeing from your customers?
Well, I mean, I think one of the key ones that we see is first off, either they have outdated technology because they're not staying up to date with the standards from the brands. We see that rather frequently, where franchisees It's working, it's working. But then the next app comes up or the next update comes up, and they've either got a security vulnerability or they're not able to do the things that the brand wants to represent them. So that's a big problem that we see that the brands really want to address. From the franchisee side, we see that it's sometimes they don't get the best deals on this hardware because they don't have the enterprise buying power behind them. So we bring sort of those big enterprise, those big brand names, their buying power down to the franchisee. Now, it may not sound like it's a huge deal, but when you're running 10, 15, 20 devices across a couple of stores, that can add up to hundreds or even thousands of dollars in savings right up front on that purchase of the devices. So those sorts of things. And then, like we were just talking about, the employees who don't take the initiative to say, hey, this is broken, it needs to get replaced, because they don't want to take the time to set up a new one or to deal with it. Those sorts of problems are still very prevalent.
And I would say too, a big thing is, we're coming up on Mertech, and one of the big things that we're planning on talking about there is that customer engagement versus new customer acquisition. I think that there's always a focus on I need no net new, I need net new, and instead, why aren't we focusing on the customers that we already have? How do we engage them through this mobile technology so that their bills are bigger and they're coming back more frequently? That's going to cost us essentially less in the long run than always saying, where's the net new? Where's the net new? So I think that that's going to play a huge part in 2024, especially as, digital marketing agency spends, they're just, off the wall. Consumer trends are every which way. And, we work in marketing. I'm a marketing agency and we see it all the time. So and now I think a big focus is going to be, okay, how about the loyal customers I already have? How about the employees I already have? And if you take a step back and you think, another kid analogy, here you can tell I have three of them because that's all I ever talk about, is if you go to a kindergarten and they're going to get, the whatever, I don't want to say anything bad on here, the B or C level keyboard, right? Or laptops, the ones that are, maybe Surface Pros or, not necessarily the top of the line, but they're like, okay, that's cool. And then their sibling comes home from another kindergarten and says, oh, I just got an iPad. Think of that as your employees, they're going to want to use the newest technology. They're going to want to feel special and cool, and this is their job. And I joined a company once and they sent me like a really cheap laptop and I was like, no, this is not happening, guys. Give me a
Yeah.
Mac or I'm out. And so
Yeah.
we're going to see that very similar as it travels down kind of the not just corporate America, but in a lot of these roles that we have franchisees employing for, because technology, to your point, is much more mobile. It's transversing a lot of different um, cultures and economies. And I think the better you're able to equip your employees and your customers for success and feel like you're giving them the best of the best, you're investing in that relationship, you're investing in them, that is what it instead is going to have you turn the corner. Depesh, would you agree in terms of,
Oh yeah.
kind of my thought process there?
Yeah, I think I subscribe to a particular train of business thought, and it sounds like all of us normally will, where if you invest in the employees, your employees will do well for your customers. And that's going to result in happy customers, and which should be returning customers, loyal customers, customers with bigger spends over time with the customer. So, what does it mean to invest in your employees? At the very minimum, it means providing them the tools and the support that they feel that they need to do their job. And if you really want to get the best employees, recruit the best employees, and retain the best employees so that you can have the best customer satisfaction as a follow on effect, then that means you have to be using premium technologies. If you try and get the best employees and say, do your best job with the lowest quality equipment I could supply to you, they are going to laugh their way out of there and they're not going to want to, it's not going to be a good experience for anybody. So yeah, I absolutely agree. We got to make sure that our focus on employee is holistic. It's about their technology. It's about their training. It's about recruiting properly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll jump in here too, if I
yeah,
may, Madeline.
yeah.
I mean, we all do it. So if you go in to a restaurant or just your place of business and you find that the employee is bringing, pulling out their device. And, I've been a manager, I've been in many different roles, and they're pulling out their device. You think like, oh, they're watching Netflix or doing this or doing that. Many times they're doing something to make the business run better, or they have another app or something like that they're running. So having these devices as part of the business to where the employee can really say, hey, I have a great idea. If the whole team used this, I've been using it on my phone, my iPhone for a while. They can start to weave that in, and these are more use cases on the devices that can really help with efficiency. So I've done it for many years with the teams I worked with, and it also creates that feeling of, we're all in this together and we could do some great things, and we have these great tools that, hey, that was my idea. I brought that to the table, and look what happened as a result. So really cool stuff.
Yeah, I think that, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was working with one brand that really prides themselves on culture. And one of the things, to Tony's point right there, they allowed access to the camera. And so these particular people in this small little shop that they run, they were taking pictures of problems, but they were also like taking pictures of themselves doing silly things and leaving it for the next shift. And the next shift would just come on, and the first thing they're doing is like browsing through the photos on an iPad. And it looks like they're just wasting time, but they're actually looking at the problems that happened, as well as seeing how the previous shift was handling things. So yeah, I absolutely like that idea of give them the ability to sort of personalize it a little bit, and they're going to have more fun with it. They're going to embrace it more, and they're going to find creative ways to solve problems that you may not know are actually happening within the stores.
And this subscribes to, to kind of what you said before, your kind of philosophy. There's twofold here. One is a lot of people will say, oh, I hate social media, I hate marketing, or, digital marketing. And I go, be that as it may, like that's where people are, and you have to meet people where they are. Employees and franchisees and franchisors, they're on technology. So as much as you may not feel that it's beneficial in your life, that doesn't mean that your employees feel the same. I have a client and he says, my phone is my phone. It might as well be a flip phone. I don't even have LinkedIn on it. Whereas most people have every app on their phone. So you have to kind of mold to, okay, well, where's the majority? Where are they? You might feel like, I don't want my employees taking pictures and using an iPad, but do your employees feel that way? Then it's, again, to your point, meeting your customers and meeting your employees where they are. And another, piece of thought for our franchisors out there listening is oftentimes you can pick, well, I should say always, it's very rare you get all three, where you want something done very quickly and you want it done at the highest quality and you want it done for the least amount of money. So that's very rare that happens. So, you kind of,
you can want that. It's not going to happen,
exactly.
right?
You can apply this to your mobile and your tech solutions of, do I want something that's high quality and fast? That means that I'm getting that's like Stratix, for example. I can get the best and fast, support and the best service, but it's not going to be the cheapest. Or if I want something that's super cheap and of the best quality, those probably aren't going to marry in technology, and you have to understand that. So I think really being aware of what you're wanting and what you're asking and making the investments where they make sense. So, we're coming up on time here, but I want to ask you both, Dipesh, what do you see coming down the pike for franchising and technologies? Do you see some big blast with AI, or do you see it really kind of stalled where it's at? What are your thoughts on the landscape moving forward?
I think the idea of wearables and augmented reality all over the place, that is still in its infancy, that we're going to be finding new ways for wearables to, whether it be glasses or watches or any sort of wearable on the body, to actually improve business, to improve the customer experience, to improve the efficiency of the business that's going on in the back of the house or whatever it is. So I think that is still somewhere where, I've had conversations with Apple, I've had conversations with Samsung, with others as well, where this is where they're trying to talk, how do we make this stuff ready for business? I think that's definitely going to be coming in the very short to medium term about how is this going to work in a business. Longer term, I absolutely think that, questions like AI is going to disrupt every industry. How it disrupts franchisees' operations, I'm not sure yet, but I'm sure it's going to be getting down to the point of, but I'm sure it's going to get there. And I think everybody needs to be ready to adopt technology at an accelerating pace right now. It kind of feels like things have slowed down in terms of new form factors, new introductions. I think we're just at a little bit of a lull. It's going to pick up with things like AI.
Definitely. And what about you, Tony?
Well, right now it is launch day for Vision Pro for Apple. So tomorrow I'll get mine set up. I think suffice it to say, it is the future, but the future is now, as they say. So I'm excited. I mean, we're doing a lot of excellent work with some partners that are, I mean, innovative, but it's kind of the here and now. So there's so many things that you could do with these cameras on devices on iPhone. Vision Pro has many cameras. It's getting pretty interesting, and certainly that ties in with AI. And there's a lot of data flowing through these devices, and how how we're using that data, and frankly in a private way, is going to be paramount. So I'm very excited. I think the next few years, Depeche and we all agree, like, are going to be very interesting, because we're at quite a time right now. Talking 5 or 10 years ahead, it seems ridiculous. I think we're really talking just a few years ahead. We're going to see some huge changes.
That's
And
great.
I'll bring back like one topic that I always come back to, especially with franchisees, is the idea of BYO for the employee versus corporate provided or franchisee provided technology. That seems to be oscillating back and forth, especially with some brands wanting to control the image that they give, and the franchisee having to buy into that image for the brand, etc. So I think right now we're going a lot more into the franchisee owned or the corporate owned devices. I think there's going to be a little bit of an inflection for a while back to the employees owning the devices and enabling them to do jobs on their devices. But I think, again, these new technologies like the AR and the AI are going to bring these back towards corporate owned and being ready to provide the best devices for the employees to make that stuff actually work. So I always have these conversations with franchisees about, especially the larger ones, about, oh, no, let them pay for that, etc. I think these new technologies really are going to drive it back to, if you want to be innovative, if you want to really do cool things with your customers, you're going to be providing the technology to do that.
I love that. And it's so true. There's always going to be a flex between, oh, we're just going to let them use their own. Oh, we're going to provide this for them. I think that's a ebb and flow that will always be there. It's very similar with, company cars, for instance. Sometimes it's all company cars. Sometimes it's no company cars. Usually it depends on gas prices, but, that's neither here nor there. But, what I will leave our listeners is with one other thing is, with so much going on, one, I think it's unreasonable for you to assume that you or your staff or your home office staff is always going to have the best grip on things. That is why there is supplier partners out there. I think that the economy of franchise, or I should say the industry of franchising, has really come around to marketing vendors. People have realized that it's just too much to try and handle in-house. And I think the same is coming down the line for tech. If not, it's already there. And two, before you decide to dive into the newest and the best and say, oh, I need Stratix, I need Apple, always ask yourself to, do you have the foundation to make that successful? If you're not hiring the best people, if you don't have a great sales process, if you've got a store that's got signage falling off the front, fix the things you can fix first, and then, go to the next level, because everything works together. And the better your foundation is set up, the more you're going to get out of the investment into technology and things of that nature. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. We appreciate everything you're doing in franchising, and we look forward to seeing you on the scene.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us, Madeline.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by Netcertive. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netcertive.com.